Welcome and thank you for joining us for our first Celebrating Women special. I'm Gayle Guyardo. We will introduce you to some of the most powerful and influential women in the world, others who are making a difference for all women, and some with very special and unique talents. We begin here at home, where female food bosses are taking over Tampa Bay. More women are bubbling to the top at trendy restaurants in our area. I sat down with a woman killing it on the culinary scene. She's the executive chef at the popular library in downtown St. Petersburg, the spinoff of Tampa's Oxford Exchange. Rachel Bennett commands the kitchen at the popular library restaurant in downtown St. Pete. She first broke into the business at 18 when she needed to get a job for a college elective.
I'm the kind of person like go big or go home, so I went straight to Burn's Steakhouse. So I was like, hey, why not? Let's just see if I can get the job.
She got the job, and that experience secured her top positions in competitions across Tampa Bay. But stirring up change in a man's world isn't easy.
I try to outwork every man next to me and just kick him out of the way.
And it is a man's world.
It really is. It really is. But you know what? I feel confident that there's so many women coming up in the kitchen. I mean, my entire prep crew is women. The other day I was in there, and it was like a woman dishwasher, all women prep cooks, woman receiver. I was like, look at all these chicks in here. All right.
And some advice on the side for up-and-coming female food bosses.
Plan to work harder than the guy next to you. Plan to work longer, be stronger, and be faster. But it's all worth it. And I think that, you know, women sometimes can get scared and they say like, oh, I have to go to pastry school or whatever. But I have a lot of women in the kitchen now that can do that sauté station just as good as the guy next to them, you know, and just do it and just go for it and be confident and be empowered in your femininity that you can do something just as good as anyone else.
It's important to note Tampa Bay is home to many other female pioneers in the industry. Jeannie Parola and BT Nguyen have been the bosses of their kitchens for more than 30 years. And Marianne Ferenick has ably led the show at Mise en Place for more than 3 decades. Another true trailblazer, Dorothy Butler Gilliam, was the first African-American female reporter at the Washington Post. Her stories help give a voice to communities that were often overlooked. And as Bree Jackson tells us, she helped pave the way for a countless number of younger journalists.
She's a journalism pioneer.
As a first, I had to open the doors for some others who would follow.
In 1961, Dorothy Butler Gilliam became the first black female reporter for the Washington Post. At the time, the paper was male-dominated and, like the nation as a whole, mostly segregated. Gilliam recalled facing unexpected challenges while trying to do her job.
Such as the fact that white cab drivers wouldn't pick up a black woman.
Despite obstacles, Gilliam was driven to succeed. She relied on her skills, such as shorthand, to finish assignments on time. She believed missing deadline would only make it harder for any women or minorities who followed.
It would be very easy for, you know, editors that didn't want to have diversity to say, well, we tried, but, you know, they couldn't even get cabs. That's not our fault.
As the 1960s civil rights movement and women's movement made headlines, Gilliam's articles were required reading. She covered historic events, including the integration of Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, and the University of Mississippi.
Few white reporters at that time were really even going into the black community to say, what do you all think? What are your opinions of what's happening, you know, in this at Ole Miss?
In her memoir called Trailblazer, Gilliam wrote of her experiences, including her efforts to promote diversity in the newsroom.
It's important that we have all people represented around the table.
In addition to her work in journalism, Gilliam co-founded the Maynard Institute here in Washington, D.C. The organization works to improve media coverage by making sure newsrooms reflect the communities they serve.
Dorothy Gilliam is a legend in the industry.
Kathy Throst is the executive director of the museum's Freedom Forum Institute. She says while Gilliam and other women broke barriers decades ago, there's still room for progress.
It's been clear that we need more women and diversity in leadership, so that because tone gets set at the top and decisions get made at the top about the expectations that you're communicating about your values in the newsroom.
Throst says the museum's programs and exhibits highlight the rise of female journalists and their vital role in the media. She hopes increasing awareness of the history, the struggles, and the accomplishments will lead to more positive changes.
Because we've been hearing that message for 30 or 40 years, ever since Dorothy Gilliam and even before, and it's time now to stand up and make a change.
Gilliam says being the first wasn't easy, but after nearly 60 years in the news business, she says she's proud to see more females and journalists of color taking on tough assignments, from the City Hall to the White House press room.
The reporters who are being, singled out and denigrated, I want to let them know how much their efforts are appreciated.
In Washington, Bree Jackson.
The fashion world can be glamorous yet highly competitive. When we come back, we meet the female power player at the top of some of the world's most well-known brands. And look who's walking the halls of Congress. The wave of women joining the ranks of Washington lawmakers when Celebrating Women returns. Professional and passionate. That's the best way to describe Janelle Coleman, a power player at the fashion retail giant L Brands. As Darlene Hill tells us, she started as an intern and worked her way up the corporate ladder as a triple threat: beauty, brains, and a minority.
My mother had the talk with my brothers and I at a very young age, saying, you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. And so I have approached everything I do with that attitude. I don't expect anything to be easy.
Janelle Coleman is a Black woman on the move in corporate America, and that does not stop her from getting the job done.
I think being a Black woman is a bonus and a value, and I absolutely love being a Black woman, and I live that every day in everything I do. I hope that my preparedness leads me to opportunities, and that those opportunities are made available for me to be successful.
Coleman says when it's time to make decisions, it's not about black or white. It's how you get the job done with results. She was born and raised in Cleveland, graduated from Ohio University, where she sits on the board today. And she says she learned early on to always be ready and always have a plan B. Coleman wanted to be a television reporter, but that changed when she was told that she would not get paid for a summer internship.
I've always had a love for fashion. And so while I was at OU taking journalism classes, I decided I want to take some fashion merchandising classes and learn about the fashion industry. And while I was taking classes over in the business school, I happened to see a flyer on a wall that said The Limited.
After open interviews on campus, Janelle Coleman fell into her passion of public relations. She landed the job with The Limited in 1997, now known as L Brands, and that includes Victoria's Secret, Bath & Body Works. Well, now 21 years later, Coleman is the Vice President of Community Relations and the President of L Brands Foundation. She decides where L Brands will give and donate its resources, not just $20 million, but where employees will spend their time volunteering.
We want to make it easy for our associates to engage in the community, because when you're giving back and you're helping other people, it makes you feel good. You're living a purpose-filled life. And I believe that's what life and success is all about.
Coleman left L Brands because she says she wanted to see how and what other companies were doing, spending time in leadership roles with Ohio State University, Cleveland School District, and the United Way. She says that time away from L Brands made her a better manager when she came back.
I spent, 10 years in the nonprofit sector doing fundraising and PR. And as you know, at a nonprofit, you wear many different hats because you want those funds to go towards the people that you're serving. And so it gave me the opportunity to do so many different things, from, writing an annual report on my own from start to finish, to fundraising, planning big events. So it really gave me an opportunity to spread my wings, which definitely helped build my confidence.
Women in corporate America don't get a pass. They have to show up for work every day, ready to work. No attitude, no drama. Coleman says she gets it because hard work at times is the only trait recognized in business and among women in the workplace. Coleman's goal, not just at L Brands, but everywhere, every day, is that diversity in the office and in top positions is something that doesn't have to be discussed. It just is.
I think the wish would be for it to be intentional and consistent. And it needs to go beyond having a conversation about diversity, but really understanding why diversity really matters.
Up next, leading a double life. We'll meet a lady lawmaker who is going the extra mile to combine a new and traditional female roles. And then a place of honor for women from all walks of life when Celebrating Women returns. Congress is filling up fast with a certain minority sector, women. Alexandria Lemone takes a look at this fascinating phenomenon from Washington.
Nearly 100 years after women won the right to vote, American voters elected the most women ever to both chambers of Congress. Newly elected Congresswoman Veronica Escobar represents the 16th district in Texas.
And I feel so grateful to the community for allowing me the opportunity and the privilege.
Veteran California Congresswoman Jackie Speier has been a leader on Capitol Hill of the Me Too movement against sexual harassment and discrimination. She welcomes all the new faces. Speier also welcomes their new ideas.
They want to shake up the system, and I think that's a good thing.
Nevada's newly elected Senator Jackie Rosen defeated Republican Senator Dean Heller in the 2018 midterms, making Nevada one of only 6 states with 2 female United States senators.
Those girls in junior high and high school, they're going to look at the United States Congress and the Senate and say, there's a woman like me out there. I can do that.
But there's still never been a woman in the Oval Office.
What do you think it's going to take to change that?
That's a very good question. It could be that the first woman president might be a Republican.
But the Republican Party is struggling to attract female candidates, and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says that's a problem. The women serving in the 116th Congress say diversity will lead to better policies and new ideas, and they encourage more women to get involved. In Washington, Alexandria Lemone.
More and more women are also taking leadership positions at our state capitals, and although they commit to spending time away from their families, life doesn't stop for them. Tonight, Sabrina Ahmed introduces you to a mother and lawmaker who brings a bit of home with her.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from William.
As winter drags on in the capital city,
he himself did not run the resolution.
Lawmakers under the Golden Dome are busy at work,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
each with their own set of priorities.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Johnson.
But there's one member of the Iowa House who has a few more things on her mind. Representative Megan Jones arrives to the State House before 7:30 every morning. Considering the precious cargo she has in tow, she travels rather light and quickly. Inside this carrier, you'll find tiny 3-week-old bundle of joy, Alma.
These moments are so precious, and they're only little for so long.
No matter your title.
I think these things can operate together.
So she takes Alma with her everywhere, to committee meetings.
I hope we can work with the Bar Association to flesh out those evidentiary rules.
And into the chamber.
We have a rock and play on the House floor, which is probably unprecedented and probably not in line with protocol.
It's not always easy.
So it's physically exhausting, it's always mentally exhausting.
But she has an incredible support system that she can lean on when she needs it most.
At the drop of a hat, a lot of people came in and picked up when I couldn't be here.
Megan says she's just doing what she has to.
I think there's a lot of moms who are in very similar situations, small business owners, they're doing the same thing.
While also breaking down barriers for young ones like Alma.
Well, that's not really what I set out to do, but I hope that if our journey inspires other people, then that's wonderful. But we're just trying to do what we've got to do to raise a family and to keep both of us employed.
Something people across the political spectrum support. I'm Sabrina Ahmed.
Next on Celebrating Women, there's a Hall of Fame for football, baseball, and even rock and roll. But we will take you into a Hall of Fame specifically designed for the fairer sex. Then, A woman takes on a mission to feed and nourish those in need. This has been a historic year for women in the United States. From the midterm election to the Me Too movement, women's voices are being heard like never before. Kerry Lazarus takes us to one place where America recognizes its extraordinary women.
I'm Kerry Lazarus in Seneca Falls. It was in this tiny upstate New York town back in 1848 that the women's rights movement got started. Today, it's home to the National Women's Hall of Fame.
Victoria Jackson, you are now inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame.
This is the 50th anniversary of the Hall, honoring American women for their enduring contributions to the nation and the world.
RBG.
RBG, the notorious, and she embraces that.
Yeah, she certainly does.
There are 276 women on these walls.
Edith Wharton. I love her books.
And authors, astronauts, actresses, athletes, and of course, the suffragists. Many are world famous.
I think she's local.
Some you've never heard of.
And that's the beauty when people come to the hall and they look around and they ask themselves, why don't I know about this person? Why don't I know who invented pediatric cardiac surgery techniques? You know, that kind of question.
Oh, that's cool.
There are artifacts, the program from Billie Jean King's match with Bobby Riggs. This outfit donated by Amelia Earhart's family. The torch carried from Seneca Falls to a women's march in Texas.
There was one of two of them. The other one's at the Smithsonian.
And many items are in storage because the hall has outgrown its space. But that's about to change. The old Seneca knitting mill, 4 times the size of the current hall, will be the new Women's Hall of Fame.
I mean, this is challenging, such an old building.
Built when the women's rights movement was born, it's being turned into a world-class showplace for the history of American women.
Even our small little hall is inspiring, and this will be so much better.
It's here on the 3rd floor that the past and the present really come together. Visitors can look over the water and see the Wesleyan Chapel, the site of the Women's Rights Convention in 1848.
Your company built skyscrapers and sports stadiums. What is it about this project in Little Seneca Falls?
There's nothing little about this project. This is a special project that will leave a community stronger and better, and leave a history and honor women that have done incredible things.
Because it's really taking shape.
The new Hall of Fame is being built in phases. Organizers are fundraising 1 floor at a time. The first phase of the project will be completed in September, just in time for the induction of this year's class. At the future home of the National Women's Hall of Fame in Seneca Falls, I'm Kerry Lazarus.
1 in 8 people in the United States struggles to put food on their plates. That's according to the latest 2017 statistics released by nonprofit feedingamerica.org. As Laura Smith tells us, a South Carolina woman is on a mission to lower that number 1 garden at a time.
How long have you been helping out in the garden for?
Age is just a number.
There's nothing that you can't do. All right, give me a high five.
Katie Stagliano proving that it's never too early to achieve your dream.
I started all of this when I was 9 years old.
Her dream is to reduce food insecurity in the United States. It's a real and big problem. 40 million people live in a household that's food insecure, including more than 12 million children.
That's parsley.
So back in 2008, as a 3rd grader, Katie got to work in the garden.
I brought my seedling home, I planted it in my backyard, and it just kept growing and growing.
And before she knew it, the cabbage checked in at a whopping 40 pounds.
And I was just blown away. I didn't even know cabbages could grow to be that big. And I was like, this is far too much food for my family and I to eat.
It was at that moment that Katie knew exactly what she wanted to do with the cabbage.
I decided that I wanted to donate my cabbage to a soup kitchen.
That 40-pound cabbage fed 275 people.
Imagine how many people an entire garden could feed.
Her dream planted, and from that, her nonprofit, Katie's Crops, grew.
And that was just
the start of Katie's Crops. It kind of all snowballed from there.
Snowballed into a nonprofit that now has 100 gardens growing in 31 states across the country.
And all of these gardens are run by youth between the ages of 9 and 16 at schools, in their backyards, community centers, churches.
And I've had parents say, how did you get my child to eat salad? How did you get them to eat lettuce? It's because they planted it and they harvested it. They got to touch and feel it.
Bottom line, this is the kind of impact Katie's Crops is having around the country.
And it's so important for kids to learn about gardening at an early age, learn how to be able to feed themselves, feed their neighbors, about giving back.
In Summerville, South Carolina, I'm Laura Smith.
More to come on Celebrating Women. Up next, a real Hollywood movie star becomes a mentor for the young women in her hometown. Then later, we sit down with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who reveals what powers to succeed all women possess. The time has arrived for women in Hollywood. Female directors, producers, actors, all standing up to the status quo, taking on commanding roles in an industry once ruled by men. Viola Davis is no exception. You see her each week on the hit show How to Get Away with Murder. As Shannon Heggie tells us, she may be a big star, but she continues to give back to where it all began.
It was here at Jenks Park in Rhode Island Central Falls that Viola Davis spent so much of her childhood doing what she loved, acting. From her moving performance in The Help, to her Emmy-winning role in How to Get Away with Murder, to her Oscar-winning performance in Fences, Viola Davis has climbed to the top of the list of Hollywood heavyweights. But before she ever walked the red carpet, she walked the halls of Rhode Island's Central Falls High School.
Mimicking his hiccuping.
Mimicking his hiccuping. Inside that high school today, her sister, Dr. Dolores Grant,
The big black bug.
Bled blue blood.
Bled blue blood.
teaches the students who hope to follow in Viola's footsteps.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. My sister Viola has given so much of her time, money, any type of opportunity she's been able to expose the children in the city to, as well as parents. She's gone out of her way, above and beyond, to bring resources to the children of Central Falls.
Viola's success and regular contributions to her hometown inspired the city to name this street right next to the high school after her 3 years ago. It was during a fundraiser for Central Falls High School back in 2012 that Viola told us giving back is her life's purpose.
When I was growing up in Central Falls, that I would have wanted someone to kind of come back and throw me a rope as I'm throwing others a rope now that I've walked through the door.
She made a visit to the high school that same year.
I know the road ahead of you. I know all the obstacles that are placed in your path living in Central Falls.
She came in and spoke to our senior class. Afterwards, we had an opportunity for the students to connect and meet with her. And every single one of those interactions was genuine. You know, they wanted to take pictures, they wanted to talk to her, they wanted to interact with her. And she did it in such an original way where every student and every person that had an opportunity to connect with her was able to sort of have their moment with Viola.
Childhood wasn't easy for Viola and her siblings. Her sister Dolores tells me growing up in poverty, they often looked for an escape, one that was provided to them through acting.
I love the fact that we were given the opportunity to be on stage, whether it was in the high school, whether it was in Jenks Park. We always had those opportunities given to us, and we were able to escape those moments of poverty.
Together, she and her sister founded the Upward Bound Scholarship, having both benefited from the federally funded Upward Bound College Access program as kids. Dolores says Viola is constantly checking in on kids in the high school, especially those in the Thespian Society Dolores started, quietly paying for field trips to New York City, even giving her input on students' work.
I've had students ask me, Mrs. Grant, can you ask your sister what she thinks of my monologue? And we'll tape it. I send it to my sister, and she gives her feedback. we have access to a Hollywood star. A Hollywood star that's willing to give feedback and to give of her time.
In a city where the poverty rate currently stands at over 30%, Dolores takes pride in the fact that her sister Viola is giving students hope that they too can make it big.
And I remember when Viola was nominated for her first Academy Award, I had a student come to me and say, "Mrs. Grant," and she started crying, and she said, "Mrs. Grant, if that happened to your sister, that could happen for me."
And it was on stage during her winning moment at the SAG Awards in 2012 that Viola Davis shouted out the kids here in Central Falls, encouraging them to, quote, dream big and dream fierce. In Central Falls, Rhode Island, I'm Shannon Heggie.
She's a driving force in our nation, and for good reason. A one-on-one chat with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and what she wants for American women. Plus, a powerhouse on the basketball court shows us what it's like to be a leader in life. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is unquestionably the most powerful woman in America, the first woman voted speaker, and when Democrats reclaimed the majority in the U.S. House, the first to return to that position. But she told Colleen Marshall, it's not good to climb the political ladder unless you can reach down and pull other women along with you.
She is the first, but does not want to be the last. After 8 years of being mired in minority politics, Nancy Pelosi is back on top, again holding the speaker's gavel and working to put more women in seats of power.
Is that a goal for you?
Of course, it is not a goal, it's an imperative. When I first came here, there were 23 women in Congress, 12 Democrats, 11 Republicans. We made a decision on our side to increase that number. We have now 91.
A record number, applauded even by President Trump during the State of the Union. Democrats encouraged all congressional women to wear white to honor women's suffrage. But women in Pelosi's party are not thinking or voting with a single mind.
These women, these factions are going in different directions. Do you feel sometimes like you're herding cats?
No, I feel like I'm respecting the diversity of our country, and it's pretty exciting. I always say our diversity is our strength. Diversity in every way, gender, ethnicity, generationally, geographically, yes, philosophically. That's our strength, our diversity. Our unity is our power.
A power Pelosi reclaimed in 2018, admitting the 2016 presidential election was traumatic for women in her party and caused her to shelve a plan to retire from Congress.
I did really believe that if Hillary Clinton had won for president and there would be a woman at the very head of the table, the Affordable Care Act would be protected, our initiatives for children, Hillary Clinton so committed, that I could really go home and work in the community, not necessarily in Congress. But that didn't happen, so here I am still.
First elected to Congress in 1987, Pelosi surprisingly describes herself as naturally shy. A mother of 5, she says she was driven to public service by a desire to advance policies that support children.
I always say to people, put a gold star next to your experience as a mom. Some people will say, oh, well, I had this space where I was just a mom. I said, don't ever say just a mom or just a housewife. That's a balance of diplomacy, interpersonal relationships, quartermastering, care, feeding, driving, all the rest, and also just keeping the peace, letting everyone reach their fulfillment, not at the expense of someone else.
You know, back then, back in the 80s, there was a saying that I remember that women have to work twice as hard to get half as far. There was this feeling that there were a limited number of seats at the table for women. Was that daunting for you, or was that the challenge that was inspirational for you?
Well, first of all, there were no seats at the table for women in terms of a leadership table. Twice as hard for half as much recognition probably was true then. I don't want it to be true now. So I say to women, just know your power. Be confident in what you bring to the table. There's nobody like you. The authenticity of you is your strength, and the country needs you.
And although she is a lightning rod for Republicans, Pelosi concedes the country needs a Congress that can work with the White House and a Speaker who can work with the President.
Increasing paychecks by building the infrastructure of America. He says he supports that. We can do that working together. So let's find our common ground. We have a responsibility to do that, stand our ground where we can, but again, not find issues from the start that are dividing, but issues that are unifying. E pluribus unum, that's our founders' guidance to us, from many one.
From the nation's capital, Colleen Marshall.
Pelosi says during her first stint as Speaker, she rarely talked about the power that comes with the office, but now she does speak openly about her clout because she wants to inspire other women to have self-confidence. Coming up on Celebrating Women, Turning Back the Clock, we visit a business built by a woman that has withstood the test of time. Plus, a heart-to-heart encounter with a superstar athlete who is making a difference off the court. She was a pioneer in science and business at a time when very few women dared dream such goals. Keith Counts looks back to the turn of the 20th century to celebrate this remarkable woman.
A true trailblazer, she was known to generations of people in Old Saybrook simply as Ms. James.
She was just all things to all people.
The life of Anna Louise James truly one to celebrate. Born in 1886, she graduated from the Brooklyn College School of Pharmacy, later becoming the first female pharmacist in Connecticut. James took over this pharmacy on Main Street in 1917, when its previous owner, her brother-in-law Peter Lane, went off to fight in World War I. She would later rename it James Pharmacy. At the time, James was one of just a handful of African Americans in town, but she would quickly become part of the fabric of the community.
What was it about her personality that was so special?
She always had a smile. She always gave you the feeling of, don't worry about it, honey, I can take care of it for you. She was kind of like a member of everybody's family.
Today, the place where Ms. James worked and lived for decades remains one of the town's most famous structures.
When you come in this building, you can almost feel the presence of Miss James behind the pharmacy counter dispensing medication. She was a woman who was truly beloved in this community for many decades.
Shelley Taylor, a former owner of the property, has become something of an Anna Louise James historian, going to great lengths to keep the James legacy alive.
This building just is, probably one of the most famous historic buildings in the town.
Inside this original cabinet from the James Pharmacy, fountains and ice cream scoopers from the original soda fountain, and even bottles of medication used by Ms. James herself.
Now, what was snake root used for?
It could be used to cure any manner of infection, probably.
Longtime Old Saybrook resident Barbara Maynard remembers vividly coming here as a child in times of need.
If you had a cut from a clamshell, if you were bitten by a crab, if you had poison ivy, you went to Miss James. She would not only treat it, but sell you the medication you want.
James Pharmacy, according to Maynard, was the place to be in town back then, a gathering spot for regular folk and the famous, like Fenwick resident and legendary film star Katharine Hepburn, who was known to stop by with her Hollywood friends.
She would come in and everybody would know her, of course, and she was very friendly, and she would get her ice cream and she'd get her papers, and she came with Spencer Tracy. I remember that.
Anna Louise James ran the pharmacy for 50 years, all while living in an apartment upstairs. What was the pharmacy then is now a bed and breakfast, run by Eileen Satile and her husband Paul.
This cabinet was a part of Miss James Pharmacy.
So you can imagine Miss James going up and opening these windows and greeting customers?
Yeah,
Is that what
and having a nice cool breeze running through her pharmacy.
Fitting for a woman who defied the odds to become a community treasure whose legacy continues to be celebrated.
We'd like for people to enjoy James Pharmacy 300 years from now and see the quality and how special this place is.
That was Keith Counts reporting, and more to come on our Celebrating Women special. Coming up, she faces the toughest opponents her sport has to offer, but this superstar athlete is also known for her accomplishments off the court. And later, we get down and dirty, meeting up with some women who are taking on the male-dominated world of professional farming. Four NCAA hoops titles, top draft pick in 2016, and the youngest member of gold medal winning U.S. Olympic team. Breanna Stewart may soon run out of room in her trophy case, and she's only 24 years old. Farah Jardrin goes one-on-one with Stewie, and that may go down as the greatest female to ever play the game of basketball.
Ordering up drills for youngsters dribbling on the same hardwood she once played on. Seattle Storm star forward Breanna Stewart bringing her first basketball camp home to North Syracuse last December. Once lighting up high school hoops for the Cicero North Syracuse North Stars, Stewie went on to win 4 straight NCAA titles with UConn.
When I dreamed about things, it was kind of like when I was in high school, I dreamed about college. And then when I was in college, I'm like, oh, I can go play in the WNBA.
The Seattle Storm select Breanna Stewart from the University of Connecticut.
The #1 draft pick in 2016, Stewie would scoop up several awards that same year, including a pair of ESPYs and a gold medal in Rio.
Kind of just, I don't know, not thinking too far ahead of myself. I mean, now I know that anything is possible, really.
Stewie has proved she can conquer the court. And since she started, she's been aiming from well beyond the arc to make an even bigger mark on the world.
Yeah, I'm playing basketball for a living, which is amazing, but there's other things in life that are more important.
Last year, Stewie stood up and shared her truth with the world in the Players' Tribune, echoing "Me Too" with countless other survivors of sexual abuse.
I couldn't sleep. I was always up. Just because that would be the time that things would happen, when I was at a family member's house and it was nighttime.
Stewie was 9 years old when her uncle started molesting her. Years went by and she didn't feel safe. Even the court fell short of bringing her complete safety. But it did give her a space to be a kid and be free of haunting thoughts. When she was 11, she broke her silence and told her parents. A police report was filed and her father said her uncle confessed to everything.
Saying that my article helped save their life or that type of thing, those are powerful statements.
Years removed from what she described as a childhood with pain, black holes, and blank spaces, Stewie admits memories flash into her mind every day.
Opening it up to the rest of the world was like an additional weight lifted off my chest.
While some may never speak their truth, Stewie wants survivors to know how much it can help and heal. Saying "Me Too" on the world stage is just part of Stewie's mission that goes beyond breaking records and winning awards.
If it's something that I believe in, I'm going to share my opinion, because our worlds are colliding now, between sports and everything else that's going on outside of that.
Stewie's long list of awards and fame put her in a league of her own, but her beginning tethers her to what many can connect to.
I can be a relatable, normal person because it may happen to me and it may happen to a random person on the street, and that's life.
What we know about Stewie's life and legacy so far is really just the beginning. Reporting in North Syracuse, New York, I'm Farah Jardrin.
From the basketball court to the farmyard, agriculture is another area where men have traditionally run the show. But coming up, there is a movement to help ladies step into the tractor seat and manage their own farms. Women in agriculture have always played a pivotal role in keeping a family farm running. These days, they're getting more opportunities. Call them farm hers. Sabrina Ahmed shows you the program that is helping females down on the farm.
We have to do more buckets for that then.
Before the sun rises on the Tulloch family farm, sisters Abby and Jenna are hard at work before they head to school. Pampering their show cows, they'll spend hundreds of hours with them before the real work begins this summer.
Her name's Phyllis. She's that white one. You can't really see her. She's almost so tame that she's like kind of annoying sometimes.
It may not be glamorous, but they wouldn't trade these muddy morning walks, even if it meant a few more hours of sleep.
I've done this basically my whole life since I was 6 or 7, and I wouldn't know my life if I didn't have it in it.
Once they finish up by the house, they head out to the pasture.
I'm just going to check the cows to make sure that there's no babies coming.
Sisters working as a team every morning.
It depends on the day, but you caught us on a good day.
On days they need a little boost.
If you can dream it, you can achieve it. Mind your own biscuits and life will be gravy.
Inspiration is a whiteboard away.
Every time we come up here, they just remind us that we have to continue to work even if we don't have the motivation during that day.
Getting them through those 5:30 a.m. wake-up calls.
If you can think about it, you can know you can do it.
Ladies like Jenna and Abby are the future of farming, and women like them are working every morning on farms across the country. Margie Alanas saw a need to showcase them.
I started a photo project to show people what women do on farms, like the real everyday, out here in the mud, up early in the morning, feeding the cattle.
Still pictures she took became so popular, she started a TV show called Farm Her. Now in its 3rd season, Margie uses the program to teach Americans where their food comes from.
Every single thing that we all eat comes from a farm in one way or another.
And to introduce the women behind the often thankless job.
You know, you could be here on a farm in Iowa taking care of your cattle, and somebody in California could see that and they could look at that and go, that's my everyday, that's my morning, I can relate to that person.
Jenna and Abby,
you put it in the bag.
Well, they'll just keep showing, finding that internal motivation and winning, and hope that shows people that women are farmers too.
Most of the time people joke about how girls always do better in the show ring than boys.
In Indianola, I'm Sabrina Ahmed.
Thank you so much for watching our Celebrating Women special. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. From all of us here at News Channel 8, good night.